Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here in Brookshire County taking off from our Houston airport, and in this video we're going to focus on expanding Houston, expanding the street grid to the areas we've wanted to for a little bit now, and making sure that the city has plenty of room to grow throughout these next few episodes. And so we already have a little bit of a plan on what we want to do here. We already talked about how we want to switch up this road so that this follows up along our highway, and then maybe it turns in a little bit earlier, and we have a connection here. So then that sets and defines this edge. So then we fill that all in with these connecting roads. And then down here, filling out this area, because I think this is just wasted space at this point. We should definitely be figuring out how to fill this in with a suitable set of roads so that Houston can continue to grow, as we're sitting about 2,000 below our target population. And then if we get done with this, there are a few cargo lines I want to take a look at and set up, or maybe even some passenger lines to set up if we have the time. So if we get finished with Houston in a reasonable amount of time, we'll get to some of those other projects as well. Alright, and so to kick this off, let's just get right into it, and we should be back once we have a upgraded Houston. Alright, and so now we have our expanded Houston here. This is only just part of it. There's still more that we're going to do, but I wanted to quickly recap and go over what we've done here. So we fixed this road here so that this just follows along the highway, and then this road just butts right into it here. I think that will help a lot. This will help turn this road into one of our more major roads for people up in this area of the city to get to quickly get down to maybe this highway or other things down here that we end up placing later on, or even just connecting to some of the larger streets throughout the city, to instead of them coming through all of this tiny street grid stuff. And so as I was building this out, I think this area here between sort of this road and our highway would be a good area for a sort of industrial section, or maybe a distribution center for goods coming in by the highway. So for instance, we can maybe start bringing food in all the way over from Portland here on our highway, all the way up, maybe have it get dropped off here somewhere. We could probably do similar with some resources over towards Tacoma. I know we're already making construction materials, but maybe we could have a line that brings the construction materials from Tacoma into Houston, and then maybe it can take different resources back. Just sort of having that sort of ability to trade with other cities. Having that somewhere here right off of our highway would probably be pretty beneficial to have eventually. So that's why we didn't really build any roads on this side. I'm not too sure what I want it to be yet, but I do want to leave this space open for something like that. And then we have this space over here that I didn't really touch too much. I think pretty soon I want to start adding some larger custom builds to this area, much similar to what we did in Salt Lake City. So maybe have 1 or 2 stores in this area, have this all paved over with people magnets, that this becomes a pretty buzzing area of the city. I know we wanted to also have one here somewhere. I think that is still an option. So those are all things that I want to do maybe in the future. Probably not right now, but I think those will be good projects to have once Houston fills out what we already have a little bit, and then we can just add to that existing context. And so now I think let's start figuring out how we're going to fill in this area. I'm not sure if we're going to come all the way down to here, but at least these 2 plots I think we could really fill in quite easily, and it wouldn't be too hard to do. Maybe we can even fill out an area here along the train tracks. I'm not too sure how far that way I want to go though, but let's get these 2 areas filled in and then sort of see where we sit from there. Alright, and so now I think this area looks pretty decent. We did as good as we could with what we set ourselves up with. So we get some weird patches sort of here in this area. Getting this road in was a little bit awkward, but I think it came out alright. I don't think it's perfect, and maybe this angle's off a little bit. But I think I want to change this. I just don't like how it just doesn't look right with what we currently have. So we'll try to pretty much just eyeball this into place. And I think that works pretty well, because these are two slightly different angles, so whatever this is probably needs to be slightly in between that. And so maybe we try again, and maybe it's a little bit more like this. Yeah, I think this is looking a lot closer to the angle that we would want for that. So I think we'll keep that. I think that looks a little bit better, and then this road gives us a good chance to just break into a regular grid from here on out. We had a few extra streets, but obviously nothing too major until we figure out fully what's going on down here. I think this port could use a bit of an upgrade soon. Not sure as to what that would look like, but I think it could probably use an upgrade considering what we're starting to bring in and out of this area. Alright, and so while we're here in Houston, there's a few things I want to take a look at. First, these stone trucks, if we haven't already, upgrade these to our next best set of trucks. And so we do have this dump truck that carries a bit more resources. It looks like 16 is going to be the highest that we can get still. So let's upgrade these. And I don't know what our rate was before. It said 600, but I thought we would be bringing 800 out from here. So we'll keep the same number of trucks. Yeah, I'm not sure why. I feel like we should be pulling a lot more stone out of here than the 750 it currently says. But anyway, that should help a little bit, although we didn't really get rid of any vehicles. But we can upgrade some of our other lines, such as this tools truck. This line is obviously getting in the way, so we can upgrade that for some tools. We'll bring our rate back down so that we still keep around the 250 that we had before. And that seems like this will get rid of about half of the vehicles we had, so that should be somewhat significant for traffic. That looks like this will be just fine. Alright, so let's take a look and see if there's any other lines here that could use upgrading. So we have our construction materials trucks here. And I believe these could be replaced at a good rate. I don't even know what trucks we were using for these. It looks like we might have been using, I want to say these trucks. But anyway, for construction materials, we'll replace them with these. We'll keep that rate around the same. I think that was around 700. Probably don't need to get rid of too many vehicles for that. So we'll keep that number. Now that should help a tiny bit with easing traffic up in this area in terms of our trucks. I know overall our truck line didn't, or our stone line didn't really lose any trucks, but we do want to get a decent amount of construction materials out of there. And so I think that's going to do it for those lines. Now I want to take a look around and take a look at some of our bus routes, our bus lines. I suppose maybe it's time this station gets an upgrade, because this is starting to look pretty backed up. Maybe we get 2 stations. If we have 2 stations, one on each side here, they'll still be connected to each other, just due to their catchment area, as you can see. But that might help spread out the traffic a bit. So let's see what we can come up with here. This bus station isn't even really parallel to the street or anything, so we're gonna have to pause since this is going to break a lot of things. And then let's see what kind of bus stops we can get. Alright, so I think this ends up being pretty okay for what it is. So we just split this up into 2 4 terminal bus stations. That's much better than the 6 we had before, so we can split these up. And we should do this strategically in a way that will split this traffic up. So currently this, for instance, this airport line, this doesn't need to come to this station, that can come over here. So we will move that over, so that works. And then we'll want to take a look at some of our other lines. I think this one wants to probably be here. This line also probably wants to be there. This line, we could probably afford to flip it over to this side. So let's do that. And that is our first stop, which means we're going to have to end up putting this at the end. And then this last line here, I suppose this one's okay to stay as well. Let's let this run and see what happens, as I think hopefully some of these buses will switch over. And these people, of course, are going to have to go back and forth a bit. Alright, so it might take a second before we start to see this clear up, but we can see both stations are getting used. But ultimately the goal of this was so we can begin adding some more bus lines up here, which is what we're going to pretty desperately need as the city grows. We built all this new space, we're going to need some public transportation for these people to use. And so we're going to see if this clears up this traffic first, and then if we see some improvements here, we'll go ahead with adding some more lines throughout the city. Alright, so I'm not sure if this traffic is really getting better. So I think we're going to have to move one of our busier lines from this side over to here. Although it wouldn't make perfect sense, but I think this line, our bus line 1, is going to have to move over. So we'll pause this quick so we don't cause issues. And then we'll have that come into here. And now we're going to see a lot of people just switch over. We see this massive wave of people now moving over to this bus station. And hopefully we'll begin to see this road clear up. And of course, almost immediately, it looks like that might have solved our traffic problems here. We will let this play out and we will check up on it just to make sure, but I think this is in a pretty good state now. So let's start thinking about some other lines that we want to run through here. Now I think this is going to be a pretty big line, but I think it's going to be very important for the city. I think we're going to have a line that starts here. It's going to come up to this road, and then this is going to follow this road all the way around. And I think we'll stop it at this intersection for now, but we might even extend it down here or here later on. And so we're just going to line this up with streets that will eventually connect up to here. So we'll do that. I believe the next street would be somewhere here, so we're going to put it probably right about there. And then the next one, we'll put one there. And then I think that'll bring us to our last one, which would be down here. And so it's a pretty spread out bus line, but I think that'll be pretty important for traffic, especially people getting to this train station. And then if we get stuff placed over here, pretty much getting from one end of the city to the other. Although we do have some other bus lines that could probably do that a bit more efficiently. I think that's important to have. And while we're placing down bus stops, we might as well do everywhere else. So coming up this street, this is a little tough because we can only fit one more. I think we'll get that on this street. Right here. So yeah, that should work, and then we'll have our other stop right here, which is where these will transfer over. We'll do the same thing here. These buses will come up, and then their last stop will actually be here. So it's a bit of a shorter trip, those 2 blocks, but I think that'll be fine. And then coming across this way, technically they're connected, so I think we might just leave that for now. This line again doesn't come over here, although we could have it shift up a street and drop off right here, but there's no other stop to connect to. And then we'll have this stop for this line. And I think that'll do it for up here. Actually, I think what we're gonna want to do is have a line that does something like this, and this stop does connect to the train station still, so we'll get a stop there, one here, one here, we'll get another one. Yeah, we'll get another one right here, and then this can connect into a stop that would be at this intersection. And so I think this is good enough. That should be enough lines for us to cover everything. We have to figure out what we want to do with this tram line at some point, because right now we just have it turn off and go into these stations. I think we do want it to go all the way up our main street, but I'm not sure how we want to tie in the bus stop with that. Maybe we don't have trams coming into here. I'm not too sure. Or maybe we have a tram stop here that's able to just connect into the catchment area of our train station. I'm not too sure, but that's something we'll keep an eye out for. Alright, and so let's set up these couple of bus lines, or adjust the ones that we're already adjusting. This one's fine. I think it's mostly our lines that go up and down the city here. So starting at the end, this will then come back to up this area. Back down, that looks good. The only thing I would change is probably the side that this bus comes on, so I think that works out. And then next would be this line. This line also needs probably some new buses. But here, starting at number 8, 9, 10, and then back down. That looks to be pretty good. And so let's upgrade these buses, since these are terribly old. And I think that does it for our existing lines. So let's set up, I believe we only need 2 more. new lines in Houston, so let's find our road depot. So I think we're going to try these twin coach buses for our sort of big street line. So that's the one that's going to start here and then come up to this stop and then just follow through. So we'll just continue following, and then down here it turns around and just goes back up this street. So I think that'll be fine. And then our last bus line, which we'll only get like 8 buses on, since it's not too big of a line anyway, and that will just come across like so. Everything here looks good. Maybe we switch this around. I guess that's fine. Alright, so now all of our bus lines are updated. They should be able to get to where they need to, all in this area. And these bus stops do cover these new areas, so we should be good. If we check our destinations layer, we can start to see we're getting some private transportation moving throughout some of these roads just because we don't have that public connection. So hopefully now that we do have that, we'll start to see some people beginning to use this. Specifically in this area, I'm not sure why we have so many people coming through here. It might be people trying to get up into these houses because we didn't have connections there before. But I believe most of the city should be covered under this area now, unless they're all trying to get down here, which would make sense. We don't really have bus stops here. Now, I don't want to think of a whole new line at the moment, but what we can do is extend this bus line and bring this down to here, and that wouldn't be too bad overall. We'll just be missing some areas in here and down in this area. And so that's probably where a lot of that private transportation is coming from, in this area. In fact, we could probably select one of these and see exactly where they're going. So this person's going to, yeah, right here in the middle of this area where you don't have a bus connection. So that's something we'll address at another time, but I think what we have now is good enough. Alright, so that brings me into the next thing that I want to work on, which is getting a train connection from our town up by the lake to the city of Pittsburgh. I really like the idea of having that connection. So really that town's just going to be connected to Pittsburgh and Roswell eventually once we set that up. And so I think having a passenger station somewhere over here connecting to this set of tracks would ultimately end up being pretty beneficial. It'll be a good driver of demand since it's a fairly straightforward route from Pittsburgh as opposed to Roswell. And so I think we just need to figure out, first of all, where that train station is going to be, and then secondly, get it connected and get the route set up. Alright, now here's the train that's going to end up running our passengers from Pittsburgh up into the mountain town. I think this ends up being a pretty okay train. Obviously didn't want to go with something too expensive because I don't anticipate too much traffic going between here, which is why we also only have one train. We might get two just due to the frequency of the line. It's currently a frequency of 24 minutes, so maybe we'll add a second one once we start seeing passengers show up, but we are running at 4.5 million per year, so again, that's going to be pretty hard to make up on this line unless we're almost definitely running full in both directions. So we'll see how this turns out, but we do have our train station down here in Pittsburgh. Right here, this is all set up. It is technically connected to some of these bus stops, or I guess just this one. So we might be able to get some people in just from that. We will have to see. I think we can probably connect this road. That'll help. Doesn't look like that gets us a connection, but we'll see how many people end up using this before we make a dedicated bus line from Pittsburgh. Although I know that's going to be pretty hard just because this is the only stop that technically connects. But again, once we get people moving, it'll be easier to gauge the type of demand that we should expect on that line. And so just checking up on the rest of the map, it looks like Pittsburgh's starting to fill out this area in a fairly decent way. I'm not opposed as to how it's building it out. I think the only thing I might do is maybe add a wall around this highway, just so we don't have these commercial buildings butting up right along the edge here. So let's actually just get in here and do that quick. Something like that wouldn't be too hard. Alright, so now we have this sort of barrier here between our highway and some of the stuff over here. So this looks a bit more natural now, more like something you'd see in the real world. I don't see any other issues like that popping up anywhere else at the moment, but it is nice seeing this area of Pittsburgh start to populate. We see we do have a fairly decent amount of cars coming in here, but that's obviously because there's no buses here yet, so they all have to drive to wherever they need to get to. And now the interesting thing I already see is we're starting to get people waiting here to head down into Pittsburgh. So that's interesting. Let's see if we come down to Pittsburgh. We don't have anyone waiting, although this train did pick up one person. So that's exciting. This is going to take a while before we can accurately gauge how much money we'll be able to make, because again, it does take 24 minutes for this train to go up to the town and then back to this station. But we are starting to see some exciting signs there. Alright, and then another thing that I want to take a look at is our trucks coming into this food processing plant. Now, I know we have a ton of trucks, which has been quite a problem for us for pretty much every time we come and build in this area. So I think we could probably upgrade these trucks now, or at least a few of them, to basically reduce the amount of trucks that we have running. So we'll just grab a few of these lines, such as this one. We'll replace them with, I believe we were currently running these. Or no, we're running these trucks, which can only carry 13. I think we just upgrade a few of these lines to these trucks to carry 16. I don't think we'll do all of them because that just feels a bit overkill, especially given the running cost of these trucks. But we'll do that. We'll get rid of a few vehicles to get us back to the needed rate, and then I think we'll just sort of rinse and repeat that on a few of these lines here. Alright, so we got a couple of these trucks upgraded. I think we did 3 or 4 lines. We reduced the overall trucks by, I think, probably 10 to 15 trucks, which isn't a lot in the grand scheme of it, but I think it will help slowly over time as we continue upgrading these trucks. Alright, and then the last thing I think I want to do in this video is get this interchange looking a little bit nicer. It's starting to get some more regular traffic on it, so I think it would just make sense to make this look nicer anyway. So let's get into that, and that'll be pretty much what we end this video off with. Alright, and so here is our interchange. I think it took a few tries to get what we wanted, specifically here with the bridges, but I think it came out looking pretty alright for what it is. I'm not too fond of this connection here, but it's not really high enough traffic for us to really think about optimizing this. But at least this connection to the highway looks a lot nicer. It flows a lot better, and hopefully we'll see it get used a lot more in the coming future. But I think for now, let's take a closer look at what we've done so far in this video, and then when we come back, we'll talk about some next steps and future projects. Alright, and so now that we're back, let's take a closer look at what we've done. So we can see here this passenger train, it is returning back to Pittsburgh about half full. There's 43 people. If we come back, there are already 3 people waiting up here. I think we might let this run 1 or 2 more trips just to get an idea. We can see we earned a tiny bit of money from the one person that we were able to move. Looks like we're not even able to hover over that to see how much one person gets us on this trip. And then down on the Pittsburgh end, we do have 14 people. It's nothing too crazy, but I think, again, once we make another trip or two, it'll probably feel a bit more established and we'll get a more accurate reading on how many people would be using this. And then everything here in Houston looks to be going pretty well. Our bus stops look like they're starting to get used. This line is actually getting more use than I anticipated initially, considering there's not really many people around this route, but it is getting a few people. It looks like our traffic did clear up here, so that's really good to see. It looks like we're even able to handle a lot of our passengers now, as these numbers are sort of going back down. Our trains obviously have always been an issue, so we're gonna have to take a look at those yet again in terms of capacity. We might just have to start getting big trains in here with the ability to move a lot of people as opposed to focusing on top speed. But this line is still always making us a ton of money, so regardless of what we do on that line, it's still going to make us money. But looking around, there are some more things I think we should tackle here. One being this train station. It looks like some of our lines, or this line specifically, has a huge backlog of construction materials, and that's actually preventing our trains from taking fuel back to Salt Lake City like we want it to. Or actually, we sort of cut out that need because we now bring fuel directly in from here. So I think we're going to have to investigate that a little bit in the next video, see if we really need the tank cars on this train anymore. considering we have a connection in Salt Lake City with fuel now. We might be able to see far back enough if that made a change. It doesn't look like anything's changed recently with the finances. But again, we might have to get rid of these fuel cars because they're not getting used coming into Houston since we're bringing that in by boat. And we don't need to take fuel to Salt Lake City because we now have that truck connection that we can start to rely on. And so I think that's going to be a lot of what the next video is going to be, is taking a look at some of our cargo lines, making sure that they're moving what they need to. As we can see, Salt Lake City is basically overloaded at all of our truck stations. The train station seems to be doing okay. It actually doesn't seem overloaded. And then I do want to also upgrade a lot of our trucks, our lines. Maybe think about a new resource we could bring into this cargo hub so that this can start to get a fair amount of use. I know it gets a decent amount of use by boat over to Roswell, but I think I'd like to maybe see another train line coming in here just to see some activity. But overall, I think we're in a pretty stable spot as a whole. Nothing has any needs that we need to address. We have no massive traffic jams. I think we just need to logistically look at some of our lines, make sure they're running as intended, and then probably think about some lines that we can start to build up here in the future. So for instance, I think somewhere out here we could probably get maybe a fuel line set up, and maybe that can connect up somewhere with this construction materials plant or this train station, and then we can start to get some more use out of this area, and more specifically this corner of the map, because this corner of the map currently has not really much going on. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think given the amount that we're using the rest of the map, maybe we can set up a new industry chain somewhere in here. That would be fun, interesting. The landscape's pretty unique here with this sort of valley between these two hilly portions. So I think if we do get anything, it might be fuel. We do have a fair amount of farms, so maybe outside of Tacoma, maybe down here at the base of the hill or in this area could be farms, or maybe this in here we have a fuel line and then all of this becomes farms. I'm not too sure, but I think we do need to get another industry chain set up on this end of the map, just because it's starting to not make sense for us to rely on a single industry for the entire map, given how big these cities are getting. For instance, Tacoma needs 900 construction materials. Even if we used 2 construction materials plants such as we have here in Houston, Tacoma itself would be using over half of that production. So we need to start thinking about scaling up our industries, getting a few more set up across the map, just so that we can make sure we're able to supply all of our cities. Alright, and so with that, I think that's going to be all for this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.